In this video, I want to take a look at 5 questions that you're going to need to be clear on if you're bringing a personal injury claim. So these 5 issues, these 5 questions, you need to be clear as a bell. Firstly, number 1, how the accident occurred. You're going to need clarity, and you're going to need that for the injuries board and for the subsequent personal injury summons if one is necessary, and subsequently in court. So you need to be clear on the narrative, you need to be clear on exactly what happened so that there's no confusion later on. It's easy to, in a stressful situation, particularly if you're suffering from shock, to forget details or overlook things. So making notes, making a record, a written record as soon as you can, or indeed an oral record with your mobile phone as soon as you can, could be very, very useful later on, just to fill in the blanks in your memory, particularly, as I say, if you suffered from shock and some parts of your recollection of what happened are not clear. Second thing, what were the acts of negligence? So in order to win a personal injury claim, you need to show that you've suffered a loss, suffered injury or damage as a result of somebody else's negligence. It's not enough that it's just merely an accident or an act of God. You need to show that somebody was negligent, and therefore somebody else is liable for your injuries and liable to compensate you. From a legal perspective, legal negligence requires that you need to show 4 things. 1, a duty of care by the wrongdoer. So the person that you claim is responsible for your injuries and your loss, had they a duty of care to you? Number 2, you must show a failure on their part to discharge that duty. Number 3, you must show that you suffered loss or damage as a result. This may be just material damage, or it could be material damage and a personal injury. And number 4, you need to establish causation. That is, that the person's actions caused your loss or damage. So that is the second thing you need to be absolutely clear on if you're bringing a claim for personal injuries. The third thing is, who did you report the accident to? If it was a car crash, were the Gardaí called? If it was in an employment context and your claim is based on the negligence of the employer, for example, did you report the incident or the accident to a manager or supervisor or to your employer? The fourth thing you need to be clear about is witnesses. Was there any witnesses to the accident or incident? Have you names and addresses of those witnesses? They may prove very, very useful later on to prove the facts of your case and to prove the facts which gave rise to you suffering an injury. Finally, number 5, what's your loss? So is it damage, material damage only, or is there a personal injury as well? You're going to need a medical report to support the personal injury claim. You're going to need a garage quotation for material damage to your car. You're going to have to look at the question of loss of earnings, out-of-pocket expenses. So, physiotherapy, medicines, doctor's bills, doctor's appointments, specialist x-rays, or anything of that nature where you have to pay yourself. You should keep a record, keep notes, keep the receipts, keep proof of payment of all of these things, because ultimately, if you're successful, you will be entitled to those out-of-pocket expenses, which are called special damages. In addition, you may be awarded general damages, in that those general damages are for pain and suffering that you've suffered as a result of the personal injury that you've suffered, and that will be very much dependent upon the medical evidence, the medical report. So in conclusion, you need to consider making contemporaneous notes to allow you to be clear and to recollect exactly what happened. You may have suffered from some shock at the time of the accident, and in the moment of panic, it may make it more difficult for you to recall later on exactly what happened and the sequence of events and so on. So it's a good idea if you can remember to make a note, make a record. And answering these 5 questions then before you submit a claim anywhere, to the injuries board, for example, or before you go to a solicitor, it'll allow you to see the strengths and weaknesses in your case. Clearly, you should be leaving it to the professional, to a solicitor afterwards, to assess the strength of your case. but certainly having clarity about these 5 issues, these 5 questions, will help you. I hope you find this useful. If you do, give it a thumbs up down below, and you might be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you are interested, just subscribe down below or on YouTube. Thanks a lot.